Hi everyone, it's Steph and welcome to another video. Today I'm taking this beautiful recycled cotton, it's 7/2 from Ada Fibers, in the camel colour, the natural colour and this really deep burgundy red, and I'm making my very first ever summer top. The plan for this project is to weave one long rectangle and then cut it roughly in half, putting one at the back and one at the front. The front one will be slightly longer so that when I put the edges together, it does create a little dip at the front. I'm then going to cut out some rough sleeves. I don't want it tailored. I want the top to be loose and free so that it's nice and cool for summer. I'm also adding in some Brooks Bouquet detail to give it a little bit of interest. So my warp will be 3.5 meters long, which is just over 3.8 yards. I'm using Brooks Bouquet in a diamond pattern. It's 8/2 yarn. It's actually 7/2 yarn, but you can treat it like 8/2 yarn. And I'm going to double that in a 10 dent reed with an 80 centimeter weaving width in the reed. I first measured out 3.5 meters in my contrast yarn, and that will be my leader yarn for my warping board. Once I worked out the pattern, that would give me 3.5 meters, I could start warping this up. I actually started this project back in November before I started the Christmas Towel series, and this was the project that led me stomping off to my local hardware store to get all of the detail, all of the things that I needed for the DIY tensioning device. So I'll show you a little bit of the warping up, but not the winding on, because it was literally a nightmare. And looking back now, I'm so glad that I now have the DIY tensioning device for the Rigid Heddle Loom, because it just makes such a huge difference in winding on and your tension. Once I've got a few warp strands on there, I don't need the leader yarn anymore. So I'm taking this off now and then winding it up, and then I will label this and keep this so that if I want to make a top again, I've already got a leader ready. I'm doing some simple stripes, one in the natural and one in the camel colour, and then just a little bit of that burgundy in between. The reason I did this is to show up the Brooks Bouquet when it actually is done, and it did. Even though the diamonds kind of turned into little circles after wet finishing, it still looked really pretty. Because I had warped up but double, there's already 2 threads in each hole and each slot, so I didn't have to do any threading. Because the winding on was a bit of a nightmare though, what I did do was I trimmed off the ends so that they're all the same length, and then I knotted the ends ready to tie on. And I did this because I had deliberately warped up heaps more than what I needed. I will probably end up having extra, which is fine. I'd rather have extra than not have enough for a project, especially as a top that I'm going to wear. For the diamond pattern in the Brooks Bouquet, I wound the first Brooks Bouquet weft threads only around the natural wefts, including the burgundy either side, across the whole row. Then I did 3 plain weave picks. The next Brooks Bouquet row I wound around the camel warp threads, including the burgundy either side, and then 3 plain weave picks, and then the white columns again on that last Brooks Bouquet. I then did 16 rows of plain weave and then did the diamonds again. So doing it that way is what gave me the pattern that I ended up with on the Brooks Bouquet, but also a fairly stable fabric so that it wasn't too slippy when it was finished. I snagged so many warp threads, and just always in that one particular spot, and then another spot near the other end. It just meant that I had to put some weights on the back of the loom. I just use cheap S hooks from my local hardware store, and that's usually enough to weight down those snagged threads so that you can continue weaving with a nice even tension. As soon as this fabric came off the loom, it went straight into my washing machine on the delicate cycle with a little bit of dish soap or dishwashing liquid, just to get rid of any machine oils from the making of the yarn. And I gave it a quick iron and then onto the sewing. I zigzagged the beginning and the end of the weave and just cut those ends off so that I had clean fabric to work with. I then measured out how much fabric I actually needed, and then marked where I needed to get rid of that extra. So I marked just with a chalk line and then zigzagged either side and then cut that extra fabric off, and that extra fabric will go into my project bin for a project later on in the year. I then marked out where I wanted to separate the fabric into the back rectangle and the front rectangle. I made the front one about 3.5 inches longer than the back one. I probably could have gone more, but I wasn't really sure how it was going to sit and how it was going to look. So it is 3.5 inches longer at the front, but if you're going to do this yourself, feel free to make that longer again so that you get a deeper dip at the front of the top. I then went ahead and sewed up those shoulder seams, stopping where I had marked on the top shoulders each side, leaving obviously the neck part. I then marked out where I wanted to cut away the fabric, giving me proper sleeves. This was just a complete eyeball, and it actually worked out fine, which is surprising, but I just cut that little bit away so that it gave it a little bit of a tailored look, but still left a nice, free, easy, breezy top, which is what I wanted. Again, I just marked out with the blue chalk, and zigzagged either side of that blue chalk line and then cut along that chalk line. Once I'd cut one side out, I used that to measure the other 3 sides with the marking out the blue chalk, and that just made all of them roughly the same. Once that was done, I put the right sides together, pinned and sewed up those underarm bits, and then I could work on the sleeves. The cuffs were super easy. I just rolled inwards twice and then sewed along the edge and also the inner edge as well, and the top is done. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please click that like button. This really helps the algorithm recognize my video and show and recommend it to other people. If you feel comfortable, please subscribe so that you don't miss out on any other videos coming up. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.